visor so we don't get silicone dripping into the inside. Okay, so silicone's arrived. Slight miscalculation on my part. I thought these bottles were going to be bigger than they are. I think maybe when I was ordering off the website, I was thinking in litres and silicone is measured in kilograms. So we haven't got quite so much silicone to play with as a first thought, which means we have to take a slightly different approach to making moulds from that. Like I say, the original idea was just to make a large box that we could make one single cast from. That's not going to be possible now, and in hindsight that's quite a wasteful way to do it. And so the new plan is to cast it in sections. So we'll just do individual pieces and then we'll construct it on the visor once it's all done. As ever, when you're making something from scratch, occasionally you have to adapt your approach a little bit. So yeah, that's the new plan. Alright, so we said we were going to do this in sections, and I've been trying to work out the best way to do it, and then I had an idea. I didn't throw the kids' Lego out. Well, why would you? It's Lego. Stuff's brilliant. So, the idea is to use that to construct a box into which we can pour the first amount of silicone and just cast that front piece. We'll get some plasticine in under here. I'll probably have to put some Vaseline or something on here just so we don't get a seal. So we'll make it all watertight or silicone tight as the case may be. Pour that first piece, and then we can move on to the side bits and then put it all together on the visor. At least that's the theory. We'll see how we get on. We're just adding a layer here so that this sculpt finishes exactly at the edge of the visor, otherwise it will drop down onto the level of the helmet, which means more of this. That's a bit cold. Much better. And when it comes to smoothing plasticine, a little bit of Vaseline does a really good job of getting all these surfaces just nice and smooth. Right, let's get on with it. I just brought some stones in from the garden. I thought we'd have a little play with textures. See whether we want to go down that route. They've been washed, so we don't got all the grit and crap in there. A little bit of flashing, but you can see you can get some nice kind of texture effects. The question is, do we need to apply it to that? Quite liking this. See how we get on. Okay, we've just had to make a few adjustments because with the visor fully closed, the silicone wasn't going to make it in to get a decent mould underneath there. So yeah, I've just had to undo and redo a bit, but that's all good to go now. I'm really liking this texture stuff here. It's we'll have to get some dry brushing in on that to keep all that texture work in there once we get to painting. But I'm waiting on some mixing cups at the moment, which is a bit of a pain. It's the bank holiday. We've got 2 bank holidays on Easter weekend, which means the couriers aren't running, so I'm probably not going to get those till Tuesday. It's Sunday night now. Right, so the last thing we're going to do before the silicone is just make a cut on each of these points so that we know where the next mould has to start. And then at last we're ready to go. Alright folks, we are at long last ready to make us a silicone mould. I've been over the sculpt one final time just to making sure I'm absolutely happy with everything. Mould is level, so that as the silicone goes in, it will rise with a nice even surface, and we shouldn't have anything poking up in weird points. This particular silicone, it's mixed at a 10:1 ratio, so that's 10 parts base to 1 part catalyst. And it just so happens that that amount there is pretty much what I'm going to need to do this first mould. There is a formula to work out how much silicone you're going to need for any particular mould. I'll stick it in the description down below. It is a generic formula, I have to state that. Not all silicones are the same. I'd advise, if you're going to buy silicone, talk to the people that you're buying it from, use the information that comes with it. Yeah, that should work nicely for this. Now, when it comes to mixing, your mixing container has got to be transparent. The reason being is that, as you can see, the base is a different colour to the catalyst, and the reason for that is that it gives you a chance to see when it's mixed properly, so there's no streaks or anything like that in it. So transparency in your mixing pot is really important. Now, if this were a professional application, once that's mixed in there, that would then be put in a vacuum chamber to force all of the air bubbles out of it before it goes into the mould. And obviously we don't have the luxury of a vacuum chamber here, but there are some things we can do just to minimise the possibility of air bubbles. And the first is to do with the mixing. We're not whipping up a meringue here. This fortunately has quite a long working time, so you've got to be slow and steady about how you mix it, trying not to force too much air into the mixture as you go. The next thing is considering how you're going to get it from there into there. If you can imagine, if you were to just dump all that silicone into the mould, onto the sculpt, there's a good chance in areas like this where you're just going to trap air, especially in that nasal cavity there. You could get a lovely big air bubble in there. And so the plan is you don't pour it directly onto the sculpt. What you do is you pour it into the lowest point of the mould and allow it to rise up around that particular object, whatever it is you're taking a mould of. So it'll push air up as it rises. And then the third thing is how you pour it in there. If you were to take your container and just dump it in, that's a big lump of silicone just falling in. The idea is you raise your container up, which creates a much thinner stream, and as the thin stream works its way down, all those little air bubbles have got a much better chance of reaching the surface and popping before they make it in there. So we should be doing all of that, so hopefully we can avoid the air bubble issue. So, time to get silicone into the mixing bowl and into the mould. Okay, so the first part is the base. Okay, so that's our 10 parts base, and here's our 1 part catalyst. Again, try not to force any air in here, so there we go. So I'm going to get the mixing stick right down to the bottom. This has to be an even mix. Can't have any lumps left. There we go, that's our nice pink colour. Alright, so I mixed up a very quick top up. That's now going to sit for 24 hours to cure, and then next it's the big reveal, I guess. So I'll get back to you in 24 hours. Alright, 24 hours later, when it's time for the big reveal. Keep your fingers crossed. In hindsight, I'm thinking the Lego method might have been not such a good idea. You can do this with foam board, which means you just remove 4 walls rather than having to do it brick by brick. Maybe that's what we'll do next time. It's good to see that the Vaseline has done the job of making a nice clean break around those. I was a bit worried that they would stick, but so far so good. Okay, here goes the big reveal. So I've got to remember what shapes you've got in there. Everything in here is pointing this way. You've got the teeth, the hook on the nose, that piece on the brow. So it's all got to come towards me. I can't really work it from all angles. Let's see if we can get it out with all the teeth intact. No, I can already see some are broken off. Okay. Right, so you can see there just what a good job picking up detail silicone does. So that's the stone texture that we put into the plasticine, and all these little cracks that we put in with the scalpel. Seems to have worked really nicely. The detail is excellent. So there we go. One mould. Clean up the last of the plasticine out of it, and then we're on to resin. So hopefully I'll get back to you with that soon. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you next time.